G'day and welcome to Talking Aussie Farming. I'm your host, Jono Weinstock from FarmCap. Today we're joined by Harrison Stewart, investment manager from Prime Dairy. I met Harrison. We did an event together at Ausbiz late last year talking about agriculture. Harrison has a life journey in ag, and we're going to navigate through his experience in ag and where he's at today running Prime Value Dairy's assets. Harrison, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jono. Thanks for the pump up.
Great to have you today. And we're going to dive deep into the economics of dairy, but just keen to understand your background, how you got into ag and to where you are today would be a good starting point.
Yeah, thanks, Jono. My journey into ag probably started like similar to most people, family history in it. So both mum and dad's parents had farms, not massive ones, but ones that certainly school holidays growing up, I remember fondly spending time there and going back to visit them. And luckily enough for me, mum and dad bought a farm in 2007, which was a big part of our childhood growing up. And I think it's one of those things when you get the ability to be exposed to ag at a young age. So many people are welded to it. It's part of their brand, part of who they see themselves as an identity. Wouldn't say I'm 100% in that category, but for me it was, something I was very grateful to have an exposure to growing up. From there, went to uni. It was something I thought was interesting, a pretty good growth industry in Australia. When I look at where we're positioned globally, I think ag is sort of one of those sectors that it's got a lot of resilience and long-term opportunity. I'm probably feeling pretty good about that decision at the minute, given everything that's going on with AI and reading about whose jobs are about to be taken. So studied an ag science degree at Melbourne Uni, and then was lucky enough to follow a pathway into banking. So
that's brilliant. I saw you enjoyed some time on the slopes too.
I did, yeah.
Ski instructor or something like that?
Gap year and a half in there. So season in Canada, season in Mount Hotham, and then finally in Japan. So
brilliant. Do you have time to go skiing in the off season now?
I do.
Yeah.
It's still a massive passion of mine, but unfortunately, the 20 days annual leave a year sort of cuts a few trips short. But
that's true, an expensive hobby as well, I'm sure.
Yeah. I turned 30 at the end of this year, so I'm trying to line up a pretty big trip to North America for that to celebrate.
We'll get on to your experience in Japan from last year as well. We can talk about skiing in Japan maybe later in the episode. But tell us about your role at NAB. What we were involved in there before Prime.
I was really like it, but joined the grad program. Sort of wasn't really sure what I was getting into. I think most kids leaving uni, you just want a job, full stop. But I feel like I really landed on my feet at NAB. It's obviously Australia's biggest agricultural lender, and timed it pretty perfectly with a couple of years there that were just massive for ag growth. Talking that COVID period where interest rates were low, commodity prices were high, people were having pretty good seasons. The team I was in was very deal focused. So I didn't have necessarily a portfolio of customers that, on a day-to-day basis I'd be supporting. But when a transaction came through, and the team I looked after or worked in was of that realm of $50 million plus of lending, that's where we'd rolled up the sleeves and got to work. So a couple of those years there, it was $1 billion plus lending growth for a year.
Yeah, right.
Saw a range of different sectors, whether it was abattoirs, horticulture, cropping, imports, exports, a lot of those trade customers, bringing fertilizer in or coffee beans in or sending grain out or meat out. That was something I didn't really have a huge exposure to, but was really, really interesting. For me, it was a good, great founding great base because you saw so many different businesses. You saw so many interesting businesses as well, household names in agriculture. You got to see the financials. You got essentially bought into the inner sanctum.
That's right.
And a couple of those purchases and deals that we did, you still remember and still very proud of, and you can see the benefit of it. So
yeah, right. Oh, that sounds brilliant. What a great exposure to ag. I guess that's part of the side of the business that we love, exploring all these different farming regions and farmers themselves and different commodities, and you get to learn the economics of it all, which is kind of cool. And then how did you end up at Prime with focused in dairy?
Yeah. So Prime was actually one of the customers I worked with at NAB, so I built up a pretty good relationship with the team there over a few years, and I thought what they were doing was really interesting. And I got to the point in my career where, probably the key thing I see it's different between my time at NAB versus where I am now is that strategic decision making. At NAB, when the transaction or the deal came through to you, people knew what they wanted to do. They knew they wanted to buy this. They knew they wanted to sell that. They knew they needed an increase to build this. And you would work on it. You'd be involved for a week, and then you'd move on to the next one. Whereas I was really sort of targeting and interested, personally, to work in a business where you are working on the business every day, and you're part of that strategic decision making and trying to guide the business to the direction that you want it to go and what makes the most amount of financial sense and operational sense. So that was probably the key thing I was chasing, and Prime was a great opportunity for that for me.
Great. It's a pretty impressive fund. If you've ever been to Tasmania, it's not only a beautiful region to visit, but it's the most expensive farmland in the country, and dairy is a huge sector. In our business, we don't see that many deals in Tassie, probably because they're profitable and going well and probably don't need our help outside the bank. So interestingly, and there's probably just generally fewer farms in Tassie relative. So that's probably a sign of the strength of the region. So Prime, very fascinated. They own a group of other assets, but there's a specific focus in owning and managing dairy assets.
Yep.
Tell us about the Prime Dairy, assets that they own, and I guess the size of that. The scale of that operation.
So I guess I'll start with Prime Value. So that's our management company. We're based in Melbourne, 27 years investment journey. A lot of commercial property. That's probably the bread and butter of what they've done. But also equities, hotels, hospitality assets. Recently, private credit. Don't worry, not ag private credit, Jono. We're not stepping into your field.
That's right. The world's making us look good at the moment anyway.
Yeah. And retirement living. So a real mixed bag of investment classes. And ag is certainly, I didn't mention ag, but ag obviously as well. Ag's one of the ones we really think is interesting and a great space to be. So Prime Dairy is our ag fund for the dairy farms. We are currently around 12 dairies across. We've got 2 in Victoria and 10 in Tassie.
Great.
We're milking just all peak cows, just over 10,000 cows.
Right.
A couple of million, or just over 4 million milk solids per year. So
right, okay, that's massive.
One of the biggest commercial producers in Australia for sure. I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I would suspect top 5. And a journey that started in 2019 with the purchase of 2 farms in Victoria, so 2 seed assets there. Really probably started to hit our straps in 2021, where we bought a portfolio of farms in northwest Tassie, and from there it's just been continual growth. The journey has been a really interesting one. Those farms I mentioned that were purchased in 2021, they had some challenges associated with them. And when we look at dairy, one of the key things you need is scale. And these were smaller farms, 200 cow, 300 cow farms. So one opportunity we saw, and it's been, a lot of hard work over the past couple of years, is reconfiguring a lot of these farms to turn, 6 or 7 smaller farms into 3, 1,000 cow plus farms. So that's been our journey. We've got a team of 80 staff on the ground, full management company. We own the cows, we own the livestock, we own the farms, and our investors at the end of the day, the beneficiaries of that.
Yeah, great. So investors, I guess the benefit is they get to share in the profits of the business and also the uplift in the land. And it's not a bad place to be, Western Victoria and Tassie, in terms of owning farmland. Be a nice part of your portfolio. So you kind of, you got one of the biggest dairies operations in the country now. I just heard word on the street that Fonterra has just been bought out by a French company.
Lactalis. Yeah.
Lactalis, that's right. I wanted to pronounce it right, which is owned by a family. Is that right?
French company.
French company. Okay, so they've obviously seen something interesting with some future upside in dairy, and it's a huge acquisition, 3 point something billion New Zealand. Is that right? Okay,
Yeah.
and it sounds like all the farmers are going to have a nice windfall for owning shares in the co-op, which I'm sure the farmers, in some challenging times at the moment, will be very happy to get a nice check. And so I guess what message do you think that sends to farmers and dairy with this acquisition?
Yeah, pretty good payday for the Kiwi farmers. We supply Fonterra here in Australia, or soon to be mainland group. I actually think the deal's meant to be going through in the next few days.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
We shall see.
Okay.
For me, and I'm glass half full, but I think it's a positive thing. Fonterra Australia, which is really a consumer business, has always been part of the broader Fonterra group, which is very heavily, food service and processing focused. So in our eyes, probably didn't get the investment and the TLC to grow the brands and invest in the brands that, many others that are consumer focused would do. Lactalis is globally the biggest dairy processor. So for us, having the biggest dairy processor come in and pay a premium for a brand in Australia, should also add that they already have a footprint in Australia. So they know the market, they know the dynamics of it. For them to come in and pay such a big sum for growth, I view it as a positive. And their bread and butter, if you pardon the pun, is certainly a lot around that consumer business.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Australia really is. 70% of what we produce is consumed domestically. So I'm hoping that there's some real product innovation and investment that goes into it that flows back to better farm gate milk prices. And you start to see that. Like, I don't know, John, the last time you went to the supermarket, you walk down the dairy aisle, the amount of high protein yogurt, high protein cheese, high protein butter, this, that, flavored milks, the Rockaby products. It's an area with such innovation and so much growth at the moment, particularly around that protein piece. It's not just Australia; it's international.
So I guess it locks in supply, right, with thousands of litres every day that they can convert into higher value products, with well-known national and international brands.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's kind of the future. And they must see something, in the sector, locally and globally. Now, let's talk about Tassie dairy versus other sectors. We've looked at dairy around the country. There must be something in the grass down there that makes it attractive. What is it about all the conditions? What is it about dairy in Tassie that's so sexy?
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head when you talk about grass. That's the key thing. Right. So, for someone who hasn't grown up in dairy, it's been an interesting learning experience for me. By no means am I a master of it, but coming in and seeing the different, business models across different states in dairy farming. It's all one industry, but they're very different farms. So you look at something like New South Wales or Northern Victoria, there's a lot more of that barn system, high inputs, people growing maize crops, big feeder wagons, cows that might do 600 kilos a year, but the costs to feed them are pretty high as well. Whereas you go down to Tassie, we have relatively lower income compared to a lot of those farms up north.
Is that right in terms of milk price?
Milk price, but also production. We don't have cows that do 600 kilos of milk solids a year.
Right.
We've got smaller cows. But the key benefit and the real strategic benefit we have in Tassie is the amount of grass we can feed them. So our farms are in high rainfall areas. They produce excellent ryegrass, large quantities of it. And we target around 80 to 85% of our cows' diet being grass that we grow.
Right.
And that might be, fresh grass that we feed them every day, or it might be silage that we cut and store and feed at times of deficit. So our cost base is really a lot lower around that feed aspect, which is one of the key things. So it was interesting. I was looking at some of the farm monitoring data. So Dairy Australia do this benchmarking across the different states. And I'll just use, I guess, Australia, Tassie versus New South Wales, or I'll use Victoria as an example, Southwest Vic. So Southwest Vic, the average farm income per kilogram of milk solids might be around like $9.70. Their costs are pretty high. They're on a bit of a mixed grass, mixed TMR system. Their earnings or their EBIT last for 24-25 was around $1.23 per kilo milk solids. So pretty good earnings, especially given some of the challenges, with drought and production that they would have faced. When you look at Tassie, our milk price or income per kilogram of milk solids was around $9.10, so about 70 cents less than what you were getting in Victoria. But our EBIT was $2.13 per kilogram of milk solid.
So profitable.
Substantially better than Victoria. And that's, just 1 year that I've pulled out compared to, a long history. But
that's right.
What the difference really is, it's not around the revenue or the production, it's really around the costs. And our variable costs and our overhead costs are substantially lower because we're not feeding our cows as many high value inputs, whether it's growing a crop and having to mix a wagon, running 12 hours a day.
That's right. Geez, you'd have some jealous farmers who've lived through drought in northern Victoria and floods in northern New South Wales, and probably go to Tassie and say, I wish I could buy in down there.
Yeah, I mean, we're still exposed to weather. Like, don't get me wrong, we're in high rainfall area. Most of our farms have well in excess of 1,000 mils a year. The timing is as much anything as the total volume. That crucial spring and autumn rainfall. Whereas if you get too much in winter, you get 200 mil or something in a week, and anyone's going to struggle. So
that's true.
But that's Tassie's real key, and we saw that as something that was a great place and great opportunity to buy farms. High rainfall, good grass production, very low exposure to external factors. I'm sure we'll talk about fertilizer and grain and fuel in a minute, but for us, we really focus and pride ourselves on being a low-cost model, and that's what you need to be successful in Tassie. So, we spoke before about the scale of the farms. For us, that's crucial. You need to have scale. You need to be able to do things efficiently. So having new dairies and, new laneways and good fencing and centre pivots, that's really important. But secondly, being able to control your costs. So that's what I harp on about. I can't control the milk price. I can't control the weather. But the two things we can control is the amount of milk we produce and the cost for us to produce it. So
that's true. So you're in the business of growing grass and
that is it, and that's what the team in Tassie always remind me. We're not. That's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to grow grass, and the milk is just a benefit. Almost a byproduct of the grass that we can grow. So.
That's right. Well, a healthy cow that's well fed, produces productively, right?
Yeah.
And consistently, and I guess there's slightly less volatility. So as an investor, looking at a region, that consistency over many seasons, over many years, it looks like Tassie's definitely a stand-up, but you've got to pay a premium to get in. And I guess that's the benefit of a fund. You get some scale. And the other benefit, I guess, farmers like to get a check fortnightly, whereas most other farmers are waiting, fewer times a year. So the consistency of income as well helps pay some bills along the way.
As I mentioned, like not growing up in dairy and seeing this, like I love it as an industry. How many industries do you have where you have a fixed price for what you produce? You produce, in agriculture, fixed price, daily production, monthly paycheck, and the ability to control your costs underneath it. Like for me, when I look at that compared to, and I don't want to talk badly about other industries, everyone does a good job, but I look at something like horticulture, where the chance of a rain or hail event at the wrong time of the year can wipe out a substantial amount of your costs. And just think, how lucky are we? A hail event at the wrong time of the year for us might knock production for a day or two. It doesn't wipe out 30-40% of our revenue.
No, that's right. But your underlying asset's land, which, is strong and stable over time. That's the beauty of farmland.
Top performing asset class, I think, over the last 20 years.
It is definitely the top performing. And Tassie's the number one in Australia. relative to the other states. So the beauty of not only owning farmland going up, but you can make a buck off the land along the way, and it's a beautiful place to visit. I'm guessing, have you ever got your hands dirty and done some early morning milking shifts? Is that part of the training at time?
Certainly have been there for the early morning milkings.
Yeah.
No, I tend not to get in the way of the staff when they're down there. They probably get sick of me walking through the dairy.
Tell you to get out of the way. There's a lot of biosecurity and health things as well. Oh, I was going to say the other benefit, you've got plenty of milkers across the group. So if someone, hopefully not too many people calling sick at 4 a.m, but you do have coverage, and there are some pretty worn down families that will love this check that's coming because it's hard work and it's tiring and it's hard to get casual or relief milkers. Where I'm guessing you can ring up one of your 80 staff in the region and say, hey, get out of bed.
Yeah, no, there's certainly some benefits with scale, and labour is a really tough one in dairy at the moment. There is not that next generation of people coming through, and a lot of family farms are relying heavily on family to work on the farm. So it is something that is a challenge, and I mean, we're lucky with scale that we have good opportunity for staff and good growth progressions. So we sit here and we feel pretty lucky.
No, that's really good. Actually, there's a TikToker I follow who films himself milking cows every morning. He's trying to make a few, and I've seen some other seasonal pickers filming while they're picking, and they're getting thousands of live, probably making more money on TikTok than actually on a piece basis.
Yeah.
It's quite clever at 4 a.m. There, it kind of keeps them entertained, and it's just people find it really fascinating watching that process, and with passion too. This guy's milking cows every day on live on TikTok. So there you go.
TikTok algorithm's got you worked out.
It's got to be worked out. We do have a page on TikTok, Talking Aussie Farming, although it's probably not tapping into the right audience for our listener base, which is probably more mature-minded. But we're having a crack at TikTok anyway, if you see us on there.
Very good.
I guess I was going to ask about labour with dairy, and what are you seeing with robots? We've heard about it. We've seen some expensive robots out there. Are you guys having a crack at that, and is it working?
Yeah, we're not trialing the robots from a milking perspective. The one thing we are rolling out and having a trial of is halter, which is actually really topical. It was in the news this week, big equity raising round. So halter's a NZ business started by a guy who was a software developer and had a family history in dairy farming, and came up with this collar technology that not only does it provide virtual fencing and an app on your phone where you can move the cows, but a lot of the pasture management and herd health management, it's picking up on things like that as well. So for us, we see it as twofold. One, greater oversight of all the farms, especially for that upper tier management level. But two, reduced wages because you're not spending 6 hours a day on the four-wheeler bringing the cows in. It's pretty amazing. Like we'll sit there at the paddock and all the cows will be lying down, and there'll be you can clearly see there'll be no fence up, and there'll be a clear line where they've drawn on the halter map where the cows aren't allowed to go, and they do not cross it.
Is that right?
And then all of a sudden you get a couple of beeps, and they all stand up and they walk out the fence and straight to the dairy.
Wow. Feeding time or
milking time, right, or time to change paddocks or whatever it is. So you can pre-program it. You can have the cows, there at the dairy by 4 a.m. when the staff arrives. So it's cut, the staff are happy because they're not getting out of bed at, 3:30 to go get cows in. They're not sitting behind the bike, behind the cows for 4 hours a day burning fuel, which, at this day and age is looking like a huge saving. But for us, it's, I talked about labour and the challenges around it. Halter is really one of those things that is, a new technology coming through that we think is pretty exciting, that will aim to assist some of those. Yeah, right.
Makes it more efficient. Can you put some of those devices on your kids? It sounds pretty. It's time to brush your teeth. This is, a reminder. Get ready for swimming or kung fu and get out of bed, go to school.
I'll see if I've got a few spare in my bag, and I'll leave them with you.
Test it out. Let's see if Anyway, so. You never know, but it's almost like your Apple Health app on that everyone uses day to day to monitor your progress, and it just makes life a lot efficient to measure the health and activity of the animal, because you want it to be healthy and efficient when it comes to milking.
Yeah,
So,
and it allows us to harvest more grass, which is what we're here to do.
That's right.
It gives, growth rates, it calculates it, it takes satellite photos, it tells you based on the area you've grown how much, or area you've highlighted, how much you're allowing per cow. So for us, it's interesting. It's new. We're still sort of learning how to use it and how best to use it. But it's certainly an industry where there's a lot of technology coming through. Holtz is one. There's many other
I'm sure
companies that do something similar, and the robotic milking, that'll be something to watch in the future. As well.
Are you guys using robotic milkers at the moment, or not yet? Still manual labour? Okay. I guess, it'd be interesting to keep an eye out. I'm not sure the economics work yet, or it's not tested. I've seen some figures floating around, and they seem pretty expensive. So time will tell. Okay.
No, I haven't had a proper look at the robotic milking, but I agree with you. It sounds like a big outlay, and I think it is something like a 20 or 30 year almost. Robotic milking companies are going to be listening to this thing, and these guys have got no idea. But I think it is quite a long payback. But, for those family farms where they can't get staff, it's probably a path that they're forced to look down almost.
Okay. Now, question, we've talked about what you love about ag. What are the challenges or some of the frustrations you see in the industry or in dairy or in general? Anything jump out at you?
I think... first and foremost, not being able to control the weather and the risk that it presents. I feel we're in a good position with dairy where we know if a drought's coming, there are certain levers we can pull to try and mitigate it. But, you could be set up for a perfect year and then all of a sudden get no rain, and it completely throws everything off course. And I think that's a real challenge. It's a huge risk, and you always do your best to mitigate it. Things like irrigation, things like where you buy your farms, management decisions, but it's something you can't ever mitigate.
You're right.
Entirely.
Climatic risk for every farmer. It's an uncontrollable. Yeah, that's if you're getting into game, that's what you're signing up for, I guess. But you're mitigating the risk by all those steps that you're taking. Now, it's late March. It's quite topical, and the world's changing day by day at the moment with some key input prices at risk. Almost $3 a litre. Fertilizer issues pending. What's your take on, I guess, how it's going to impact farmers now, and also, I guess, particularly in dairy?
Yep. So fertilizer is probably the key one for us. Growing grass is what we do, and fertilizer is a key driver behind that. Seeing urea prices in particular jump through the roof, almost double of what they were, at the start of the season. It's something, again, we can't control. So we're just going to need to make a decision, be really strategic with how we spend money on fertilizer and making sure we get the most bang for buck. You've seen things like this, in the last 5 years where you've had spikes in fertilizer prices due to, the Suez Canal or things like that. That's where there's been delays in shipping. And the market always seems to work it out. So I'm hoping that, the big brains behind what's going on in the Middle East at the moment, and a lot of these input prices working on a solution to wrap it up as quickly as possible, and within a couple of months, hopefully things are back to normal.
That's right.
Who knows? But
that's right.
And diesel's topical. It's big. For us, it's not a huge expense. We're not running tractors 12 hours a day. Hopefully not.
Yeah.
And trying to use as little 4-wheeler or side by side action as possible. So for us, fertilizer is certainly first and foremost the biggest concern. But fuel, in terms of the supply chain, that's going to be what's interesting, and shipping, and given so much of what we produce in Australia is shipped internationally, what the flow on impacts of that are, and container availability. So
that's true. Well, we've been through it before with supply shocks. Let's hope it's temporary and not too long term. And you're right, the market does bounce back pretty quickly. I guess the question is, milk prices have been pretty steady, unless you're paying for some fancy premium milk and some prices that are getting up there now on the shelf. But I guess it's a value add where there's additional margins where you can kind of absorb it, isn't it? But will the supermarkets and the consumers pay more just for day-to-day milk. Do you have a view on that, or is it
Yeah,
capped?
I think you're pretty spot on there. Like, I think I touched on before, 70% of Australia's milk production is consumed domestically. What we do export is typically high-value products, so a lot of cheese, things like that into, certainly Asia. You see at the supermarket people continuing to spend money on protein, and dairy is one of the cheapest sources of protein available. So for me, I think there'll continue to be, hopefully Lactalis are listening, increases to milk price. Will that be year on year, or will it be over a 5-year period? Probably more of a 5-year period. You're always going to have fluctuation. But looking at Australia, we've got lowest cow numbers since the 90s, lowest milk production since the 90s, highest dairy consumption ever, continuing to grow. There's this real structural position where the amount of milk we produce is going more and more to domestic consumption because A, we're not producing as much, but B, we're consuming more domestically. 20 years ago, 50% of what we produced was exported. Today, it's 30%. So the more protection we can have from a domestic market, I think, is a positive. But ultimately, it's a free market, and you need to compete with those international producers. And yes, okay, we have some benefits being local and not having such significant transport costs, but we do need to remain competitive internationally.
That's true. Well, also the Tassie brand, I'm guessing, captures a premium. Not sure I like paying a premium for Tassie salmon and whether it tastes better or not, but it's definitely more expensive.
What's the saying? Come down for air.
Come down for air. That's true. Look, there's global demand for Aussie produce, and probably even more of a premium for Tassie product. Now, I hope you're not lactose intolerant, but you're not, eh?
No.
No, good. Okay. That'd be tricky. Do you have any favourite? I like cheeses and yogurt. Some of those items, milk. I kind of mix it up a bit, but I'm not. Don't get any of the fancy stuff. Almond milk, oat milk occasionally. We live in Melbourne. So
Shame on you.
You got to get, enjoy your coffee. Being from Melbourne, but what are your favourite, I guess, dairy products that you can indulge in?
Yeah, I love cheese, certainly, and just the normal cheddar by the supermarket. I think that's great. The one I also, and you probably haven't heard of this one before, but the Duck River butter. So it's a Tassie-only product. You can't buy it on the mainland, but it is this beautiful gold packet. It looks like, Willy Wonka, and you've just pulled the golden ticket out to go.
Right.
It is fantastic. And
what's it called?
Duck River, which is the river that flows through Smithton, which is where, the closest town to where majority of our farms are. And I don't know what it is that they do different. It must be the milk that goes into this butter that makes it so delicious. But it's funny, the amount of people you speak to in Tassie or Australia that go down to Tassie a fair bit. We all hang out on the Qantas Link flight flying out of Burnie on the Friday night. So, and people always fly back with cartons of Duck River butter, and it's
better than Krispy Kremes.
Correct. So it's
funny enough, the people from Tassie stock up on Krispy Kremes before boarding their flight from Melbourne to Tassie. I still find that a bit bizarre.
It's a bit of a trade relationship. You've got Krispy Kremes into Tassie and Duck River butter into Victoria.
That's right. Right.
But yeah, like I know family members and friends of mine certainly always questioning if I can bring them back a bit of Duck River butter on my way home. So for anyone who hasn't tried Duck River butter and is listening and you're down in Tassie, certainly keep an eye out for it.
Okay, send it in order to Harrison. We'll get some sent back on the way back.
Put the Farm Cap logo on
I
it.
hope you're a golf. I don't know if you play golf or not, but do you enjoy any golf in Northern Tassie while you're up there?
I haven't played. I've played one day in Northern Tassie as part of a suppliers day. It's pretty windy where we are. There is some great golf courses, but when I'm down there, I'm flat out, Jono, working hard.
Right.
So,
if you ever run a corporate golf day in Tassie,
make sure you're on the list. Yeah.
I actually just bought a corporate golf day at a charity last week, so we've got one coming up. So you guys will definitely, hopefully, join. It'll be in Melbourne sometime later in the year. Now, one of the fun parts of this show is just getting some personal experiences in agriculture. Are there any funny, quirky experiences or stories you've had through your journey, maybe in Tassie or around Australia?
A good one I laugh about which is it's a classic, is in Tassie. Just we have a lot of overseas workers. The understanding of what a Tassie devil is, and people from certain religious groups not understanding that a Tassie devil is a little animal, very cute and rare to be seen, and not actually the devil. So there's been a few times where there's been noises under houses and questioning what it is, and that's the devil's, and that causes a fair bit of fanfare in some staff members' group chats, and strategies about how to fix that and how to get the devil out from your house. So,
you ever seen any?
I haven't actually, but a lot of the guys have early in the mornings. That's sort of when they're out. They're a funny animal, like a scavenger, but a lot of wallabies in Tassie. That's the one thing you see a lot of.
Yeah, right. Okay. Maybe they should change the name of the Tassie devil. It sounds like it's not doing us any favours. Never thought of it like that.
Iconic.
Yeah. Iconic, cute and cuddly at the zoo.
Yeah, I have had one staff member swear to me that they have seen a Tassie tiger. Believe that.
There we go.
If you want, but
okay.
That's the other Tassie thing for
Tassie,
you. So.
Well, isn't there some sports teams in Tassie now named after the football, netball, basketball? Can't keep up with it. But
the Devils.
The Devils.
Yeah.
There you go. You have to sign up a membership. No, that's kind of cool. Now, I guess as an astute investor and business guy in ag now, if I gave you an open checkbook and you could invest, I think I might know the answer to this, but what sector would you be comfortable investing in? I'll make sure you keep your job regardless of what you say here.
No, look, as I said, I think Tassie dairy is a really interesting one, both the operating side, which we see as long run or long term benefits and opportunities, and the capital appreciation. I think looking at Northwest Tas, I think it's been 8.4% per annum for the last 20 years. There's not many asset classes globally that have done that. So it's obviously not all in 1 year and it's over a long term, but to me that's something that sticks out. Aside from dairy, which I think is probably where you're aiming, I love the northeast of Victoria. That's where mum and dad have their farm. I think the hills, the rivers, the natural aspect of it is fantastic.
Yeah, okay. And I guess during your travels at NAB, were there any other regions that you quite liked? You've seen a lot of P&L and balance sheets now from around the country of different types of farms. Is there anything that jumped out at you?
There was a couple of pretty strong balance sheets in the Western District during that real boom in 2021. Just a couple of those. I think the vertical integration, that's something that it's really hard to get right. You see so many people try, and you see primary producers try and go downstream, and it's a whole different kettle of fish and more risks that they're probably not prepared to or prepared for. But those that do it right, they do it well. And I can think of a few businesses that had the full vertical integration and they were shooting the lights out.
Okay. Now I'm quite fascinated. I saw that you attended a global agri investment conference not so long ago in Japan.
Konnichiwa.
So hopefully you took your skis over and had some downtime over there. But what was your experience like listening to participants from a global perspective, and in particular, I guess, the Japanese perspective of investment? Curious to hear.
Yeah, I think the global perspective on ag, people are really positive about it. Food's just a non-negotiable. People are going to need it. And those that continue to produce it efficiently, effectively, and cost effectively will just be very successful in the long run. Water was a key thing that kept coming up. Access to irrigation water, certainly looking at, some things that are going on in the US at the moment compared to, for us in Tassie, we just can drill a bore and pull water out as much as we want, as long as we find it. And some of the differences in the landscape around that. From a Japanese perspective, it was really actually interesting. The investment mindset over there is different to what I've seen before. Very low risk appetite. And hearing people talk, they were not necessarily rewarded for making good decisions, but they were penalised for making bad decisions. So a lot of their investment thesis was around not making mistakes and just trying to do the status quo and not upset the apple cart, I guess. The other thing is the cash rate over there. It's really low. I think it was like 75 points or something when I was looking. You can compare that to $4.10 where we are today. So if you look like for like, Australia and Japan, for example, 4.10 and you're trying to target an 8% return, you're only, 4% essentially, 3.8% or 3.9% above the cash rate in Australia. So if you look in Japan and you say, well, there's 75 points, I need to be 4% above the cash rate, you're looking at a return, sub 5. And that was, probably consistent with the messaging that we were getting over there, where it was all about protecting what you've got and not risking any downside. So things like infrastructure they loved, might not have been a 15% return for them, but they knew it was low risk and could certainly achieve that, 5, 6, 7% return.
Right. Isn't that fascinating? You've got a country that's so economically prosperous and fast growing, and yet is so ultra conservative in their investment appetite. I find that quite interesting. So
yeah, that's what I took away from. I mean, then we, certainly that was the message we got delivered by investors over there. I was really trying to wave the Australian flag, particularly around cheese. Japan's a huge market for us for cheese, and it's a great relationship. But yeah, the risk was certainly something that just kept coming to the forefront of every conversation.
Okay. It's not necessarily about premium yielding returns. Right. Okay. So it would have been tough to get a check out of Japanese institutions into Australia, I'm guessing.
I don't think it's necessarily the quick win.
Not the quick win.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Harrison, it's been great chatting with you today. What an incredible experience and background you've had already, with a bright future ahead for yourself in ag and also Prime Dairy. It's a cracking asset class, dairy. I'm glad we got to unpick it today, and we'll keep a close eye on dairy in Tasmania. Hopefully we can have a round of golf and enjoy some cheese.
Thanks, John. I was going to say, don't forget about that golf membership that you got.
Book me in and send me some Willy Wonka cheese. Done. All right. Thanks.